are watching Half Asian Tarot Queen. Happy holidays. I'm using the Nightmare Before Christmas deck because, well, it is actually right before Christmas and all of that. So I'm just gonna start here, and then the last reading I did, which was the solstice reading, was like very grounded, and so all the other, oh my gosh, the other decks are all very grounded and earth. There's like, this is kind of the time of year where there's like a lot of drama, and it's really important to stay grounded. And so I'm gonna keep on that trend for this whole holiday moment. Okay. All right. So this is really interesting. So we got the Three of Needles, the Emperor, and we got the Page of Presents at the bottom of the deck. What's interesting to me, so there's all this red here, and it's like fiery drama, you know? I'm getting that, and it's like heartbreak, you know, and the Emperor is kind of like, I mean, here it's Santa Claus, and it's almost like what I just got from this, it's almost like the illusions have been sort of like dashed, like whatever illusion someone might have about Santa Claus, for example, like it's like, nope, that's not real, you know? And that's kind of what I'm getting. I mean, fill in, you know, the blank on whatever Santa Claus would be in your situation, but yeah, like it's like we're popping the bubble on a bunch of illusions. There is a reading from a long time ago called like something about popping the princess bubble, so I'm gonna link that here. But we have, it's like, you know, there might have been some grandiose vision about like the way things are, but it's like actually it might be something a little bit more of a baby step than, you know, like Santa coming down the chimney with a bag full of gifts. Like, I mean, you still have something here, but it's like, it's more of like this cute little elf who's like, hey, how's it going? How can I help? You know, like it's more down to earth, you know, which speaks to what I was talking about with the earthly decks here. So that's kind of what I'm getting initially. So brace yourself for this sort of like, you know, kind of having to have like maybe like a reality check over the holiday weekend. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I just pulled out the Mystical Shaman, and when I did the split, this is really like reality check. So the Crow, you know, this is all about like the truth coming to the surface and being shown. And then we have the Blade, which is another card of like just having to cut through the slop and cut things down to the truth. And you know, we have the moon cycle on top of it, but it kind of speaks to this sort of like climax happening. So yeah, like there's like a total reality check happening. Like I think this is kind of a time of year where people like tend to like clean out the like stuff that's not working, like and in preparation for the new year, because like obviously everyone's kind of reflecting on like what kind of tone they want to set for the next year. And like I think this kind of goes along with that. Like we're kind of having to get down and dirty and honest with ourselves about what has been working, what hasn't been working, you know, in the last year, and like really kind of assess realistically what that looks like. Okay, so I just pulled out the Woodland Wardens, and when I did the split here, we got the Lizard and Pitcher Plant, Stagnation, and we got the Coyote and Datura. deceit. So yeah, I mean, I think that speaks to what I was just speaking to, like, or what I was referring to, where it's just like, where are we not being honest with ourselves about like where things might be stagnating and where we might have to make a change, where things might have to evolve and move forward. So it's like we're gonna have to pop the bubble on whatever illusions are in our sort of atmosphere, and that's going to be a part of this sort of process. Okay, so I'm going to go to the Transient Light Tarot, and I'm going to pick a couple cards from this deck, see what we get here. But yeah, the holidays are always, and like, I think part of it is that in normal life, we tend to like attract people who are kind of like-minded to us in our daily life, just as a matter of sort of functionality, that happens. But at the holidays, it's like we have to go back to our roots. And so it forces us to sort of confront people who are outside of that reality, and that's really challenging, especially when you've been living in your comfortable bubble all year of people who are kind of on your wavelength, and then you have to like deal with people who are like completely maybe on a totally different planet than the one that you're living on, and it's just like, but I think that's a good thing, because this is a moment where we have to like reflect and figure out like how we're going to move forward and how that's going to work. And that's like a normal process. Like, as long as you don't get like hung up on the illusion or not able to accept the reality of things, it can be a healthy process. Otherwise, it could be a like really dramatic process. It's like really up to the person. But either way, it tends to like bring out the drama inevitably. Okay, so at the bottom of the deck we have the Four of Coins, which in this deck it's like a bag full of coins, it's like a pouch with coins in it. We've got the Star, we got the Crown of Coins. It's interesting how he has this punk rock skull necklace. We have the Ace of Swords, and we have the Keeper of Coins. So what I'm kind of getting from this is it's almost like this isn't the normal interpretation of this, but it's almost like we're like saving for a rainy day. Like, we have this pouch, we're putting stuff aside, and we're starting to almost like think more long term. Like, we don't want to go like paycheck to paycheck anymore. We want to start having a more solid foundation than that. And it's like, what do we have to change to make that happen? Like, this is something that is being considered, and it's just like, where are things stagnant, and where are we not being honest with ourselves, and what do we have to like remove from the equation in order to make this work? And we have the Star, and that is a card of like healing, and it's a card of being recognized. But what's interesting here, so there's a couple things. So in this deck, we have this sort of like mushroom growing out of the ground, and so it's like, what I'm getting, it's like we have the two hands, we have these stars shining over this, but it's like this person is like manifesting out of the ground this mushroom, But then the other thing that I get from it, it kind of looks like a UFO, like with this little tractor beam, like going down to the ground. So it's just sort of like, I'm also getting this whole thing of like, it's like kind of going both ways, like depending on how you look at it, you know, like we're manifesting from the ground up, but we're also drawing inspiration from the stars, and like there's like a current that's running both directions here. Like it's not even just a one-way thing. Like this is like going both ways, which, you know, kind of speaks to this thing where it's just sort of like, it's not like we just have this one pile of money that like we're drawing from. Like this is like true abundance, where it's like continually regenerating. Like there's like this flow, you know, and it's not stagnant. It's like it's like its own life force, you know. I don't know where all that came from, but that's what it is. And so, and then what's interesting is then we have the King and the Queen of Pentacles, which this is a matched pair. You know, this is a divine union of people who are meant to work together to bring forth this abundance. And we have the Ace of Swords that's like separating these two. So it's almost like these two, this divine pair, you know, they've kind of been like doing their own thing, you know, living in their own world, but it's like almost like it becomes an undeniable reality that like actually we're supposed to work together and build something here. Like we're supposed to, we have this shared vision, and we're going to have to work together because ultimately we're going to build some enduring thing. And like that's almost like the truth that's coming out, you know. So it's just sort of like, what, it's almost like, what is it that's keeping these two from doing that? Like, and that's kind of what needs to be evaluated, which is really interesting, because it's just sort of like, okay, like we've been like beating around the bush for a while, but now it's just like, okay, like clearly this needs to happen. So what is it that's like stopping it from happening? Like we need to look at that. Like that's kind of what I'm getting, you know. It's just like, it's time to figure this out, you know. So let's do that. Let's make this work, you know. Let's make it happen. Okay, so I'm going to go to the angels and ancestors to pick a final card, but this is really interesting because it's almost like all this drama from the holidays is, you know, it's not optimal or what people necessarily maybe aspire to, but like I think it's going to lead to sort of figuring out what needs to change. And so it's necessary. It's a necessary part of what needs to happen. So, okay, so I'm just going to pick a couple. Oh my gosh, this is really, oh my gosh. Okay, this one. Okay, interesting. Okay, so at the bottom we have Medicine Mother, Honor Your Inner Knowing. So it's interesting because that's at the bottom of the deck. And then we have Animal Guardian, Trust Your Instincts. We've got the crow here. We've got the owl, Signs and Synchronicities from the Universe. We've got the jaguar, which is kind of like honoring your shadow side. And we have this baby deer. What's being born out of what we've learned here. We have the hunter, track down your fears and desires. And we have druid, hold the space. So what's interesting to me here is, for one thing, we've got two male and we have two female characters here. And what's interesting is that this female message is like, it's very similar. It's like honor your inner knowing and trust your instincts. So like these two are on the same page, And then we have these two masculine characters. And it's really interesting too, because the reading that I did for the solstice was very much related to this sort of union with divine masculine and feminine energies. So, you know, you might look at that because it might be relevant here. We have, and this guy was actually in that reading. So we have track down your fears and desires and hold the space. So it's just sort of like, they're not necessarily on the same page, but they recognize that they need to find a way to work together because something good's going to come out of that. This side is all about trusting instincts, and this side is about, you know, this sort of like masculine, like more assertive energy, but then also holding space for this creation, you know? So it's like this person is like kind of going for it, but it's almost like they're saving space for the wisdom that this is being held by this feminine archetype. So it's like, this is like this more yang energy that's kind of like, let's make this happen, let's go for it. Yet they know that there's a missing piece of the puzzle that they need to get from this side. And that's kind of what I'm getting here. It's a really interesting message, you know. But this illusion of separateness is one of the bubbles that's being popped during this sort of like holiday season. So it's just sort of like, all right, like, it's sort of like when you kind of have the talk where it's like, okay, like, let's get together, you know, like, what do we have to do here to make this happen? And like, that's kind of what I'm getting. It's just like, we're having the talk. But this might not be like relationship, you know, thing. Because I mean, it's the King and Queen of Pentacles. Like, it could be like a business thing or, you know, some other foundational work thing, you know. It could be anything. But that's what I'm getting. We're like starting to balance the masculine and feminine energies. You know, one thing that like is kind of just came to me related to that is that last night they showed this address and President Zelensky did this address of Congress. And I just remember like, you know, watching it, and there's Zelensky and he's like flanked on each side by a woman, you know, which when do you ever see that? Like, it was so unusual because like, you know, we just happen to be at this moment of time where, you know, for the next couple of weeks, the Speaker of the House is a woman and then the Vice President, and like, you just don't really see that very often. And so it was a really unusual, you know, and I feel like it's a sign of how things are moving forward, and that this feminine perspective is it's finding a way into the conversation, and I think, you know, that sort of speaks to like progress that's happening in the larger world, and I think that's cool. Like, being a woman, like, I'm like all for it, you know. So we're becoming part of the conversation, and like, maybe there's saving a seat at the table for us, and it's time. So on that note, I'll hopefully you'll enjoy your holiday weekend, and I might have another message before then, or might not. We'll just see how it goes, but for sure I'll be checking in soon with another update.